in progress.
All right, we're recording. All right. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Tonight is Monday, April 11th, 2022, and the time now is 6 p.m. and I'll call to order this regular meeting of the Town of Mead Board of Trustees. In accordance with the town's disaster declaration dated March 21st, 2020, related to the COVID-19 virus and the town's emergency electronic participation policy for regular special meetings, this meeting will be held virtually in Zoom. Virtual access information, including Zoom meeting links, have been provided on the town's website and designated posting places. I'd like to remind everyone present, both in person and virtually, of the town's general guidelines for public comment at open meetings and public hearing guidelines. Copies of these guidelines are available back of this room and are available online. Mary, roll call, please.
Mayor Whitlow.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Adams.
Here.
Trustee Babcock. Trustee Broadhead.
Here.
Trustee Cartwright.
Here.
Trustee Harris. Here. Trustee Schranz.
Here.
Mayor Whitlow, today is Monday, April 11th, 2022, and you do have a quorum.
Thank you very much, and please join me in a moment of silence for those who have been killed in the Russian-Ukrainian war. Your time on that. Please join me in the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next will be our review and approve agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda this evening? Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I make a motion to approve the agenda as is. Second.
Thank you. Any discussion at all? Okay, roll call please, Mary.
Trustee Harris.
Yes.
Trustee Schranz.
Yes.
Trustee Broadhead.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Adams.
Yes.
Trustee Cartwright.
Yes.
Mayor Whitlow.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Motion carries. Move on to our staff report by our town manager. Helen, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor, trustees. You have my report. I do want to mention a couple things. First of all, we did have a trial scheduled for today, but it got postponed, so we didn't have that through the municipal court. We have been seeing a lot more activity, and we will have our municipal judge Thrower is coming into our next meeting to talk with the board, just to, generally ask questions, and some of you maybe haven't met him, so we thought he would come in to talk about that. The other thing I just wanted to mention on the consent agenda, you'll see item E is for, we'll be asking you to approve agreements. It's with 5 different engineering firms for on-call services. What we did is we went out and we went through the federal process, which means that you have to go through several rigorous steps to get contractors on board when you have federal contracts. And when you see each one of these, it says not to exceed $500,000. We don't have $2.5 million worth of work in the queue. These are just the way we drew up the contracts. So I just want to make you aware of it. What will happen is each time we do something, like for example, the underpass at 66 or the safe routes to school or the 1601 process or bridges, all of these are federal projects in that they can get federal dollars. So these contractors will get a task order, will look at them and pick one of them based on their skills, but they've been pre-qualified. So actually it puts us way ahead of the game to do this, because if we waited till we got a grant and then we went through the process, it would take, I bet it took us, maybe 4 or 5 months to get to this point, Erica? Yeah, so shout out to Erica and her crew for getting that done. But I just wanted to say that just because we put that on there and I thought it might need more explanation. And other than that, are there any questions on my report?
Questions or comments for Helen? All right, thank you very much for your time, appreciate it. Okay, next is our first informational item, our One Eagle Award recipient, who is our CSO, Amber Burtis. Congratulations first, and we will turn the mic over to our Chief of Police for introductions and anything else we'd like to say graciously about Amber.
Thank you, Mayor, trustees. We are here this evening to recognize one of our employees who has brought a distinguished award to the town of Mead, and this award actually is presented to the town. So that's ours to relish in. But how that got here, I'd like to explain just a little bit. First of all, about the association. The Colorado Association of Code Enforcement Officials, CACEO, has members from 76 counties and municipalities in Colorado and Wyoming. The Juan Eagle Award is presented yearly by the Colorado Association of Code Enforcement Officials to a member jurisdiction that has planned and successfully held a community event that embodies the values of code enforcement to protect the health and safety of the residents while promoting good community involvement and values. The Juan Eagle is a traveling trophy that lives at the awardee jurisdiction for the year until it is presented again the following year. The CACEO received 4 nominations for 2021 and selected Amber Burtis and the town of Mead as the winning recipient. The Juan Eagle Award was presented to Amber on March 31st at the CACEO meeting in Castle Rock. Amber was recognized for her work on a community food drive and her commitment to building the code enforcement position in the town of Mead. We're very proud of the work that Amber has done to improve the town of Mead and support our residents with these efforts. So please join me in recognizing Amber. Trophy is sitting over there. We'd like you to take a look at that. We're sort of looking for a place to have it on display here at the town. We've had it on display over at the police department for a little while, but we would like to share that. You can see it's a little bit heavy, so we didn't bring it up to the podium with it. It actually has a payment box with wheels on it and stuff, kind of sort of around, so it's pretty substantial.
So congratulations, Amber.
Thank you very much.
Could we get a photo op with you too with the trophy and Lorelei?
We certainly have to carry it.
Yeah, so we can do that over there or wherever you want to do. I just want to make sure that she's recognized. We can just all see this live. Is it heavy? Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Amber, and congratulations. And we look forward to having it around.
Yes, and you'll see on the side over here, it has all the towns that have previously worn it. And then around the top, it has the values, and then you'll see the town of Mead on the side over here, so.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you guys very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank
We're full of surprises tonight, so thank you. All right, next is one of the 2 people I most admire in transportation besides our own staff, and thank you very much for our CDOT transportation update it's going to be from our Transportation Commissioner from our own District 5 and Heather Paddock, who is our Regional 4 Director. I'm going to have our town manager introduce them, but I really do appreciate your time tonight. I know we spend many nights and afternoons together, but I think it's really important that you get to see us in action in our business meetings at night. So thank you very much, and I'll turn the microphone over to Helen.
Thank you, Mayor. It's my pleasure to introduce these 2 ladies who work for us. As you know, for years, your mayor has been attending these I-25 coalition meetings. I attend them as well. I've attended them for as long as that coalition has been together. And both of these people are instrumental in the success of our transportation network. Heather Paddock is our regional director, and if you're familiar with CDOT at all or not, she's going to explain how that works and what role you can play in her success and in CDOT's success. And then Kathleen is a very interesting person. I've known Kathleen for 14 years, so has Erica. We worked together at the City of Fort Collins. But she is now our state transportation commissioner for this region, which is it's really exciting to actually know the person. And she was very involved with the I-25 EIS, and ultimately it went on, and it got adopted, and she had a lot of input into it. So it's really important that you know Kathleen and know how much she cares about transportation in our state. So with that, I believe Heather has to go first. She also has another engagement, so she may, if we have questions, let's ask them of her first, and then we'll have Kathleen. Thanks.
Hi. Well, thank you for having me. Again, my name's Heather Paddock. I'm the Regional Transportation Director for CDOT. And I'm just going to give you a little bit of background on CDOT. I have a lot of information that I'll throw at you really fast, but I'm trying to keep it at a high level, so hopefully you guys can have a few takeaways to what CDOT's all about.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, turn on every dang time.
No, it's a different one. And we tested it.
Okay, 1 second.
Good. For all of you around the I-25 corridor, that I'm sure you've seen this picture before. I think Abra, who's the project director on segment 6, has come and given you guys some good updates on the progress on segment 6. So I'm not going to duplicate information. I'm trying to speak a little bit more to the higher level of CDOT's organization and sort of where you guys all fit in and how the region fits into the greater state. I'm going to talk a little bit about budget, and just so you guys know where we're headed, and then hit on our 10-year plan. I'm comfortable advancing this.
It's over here, so Amy can switch it for you.
You just want to
That's
it for
that
me.
402 intersection.
It's either 402 or Berthoud.
That is Berthoud.
Yeah, and that's Berthoud,
And that
okay.
is 56, and that is still the configuration in which we are in, both northbound and southbound on the northbound lanes. I do not like our current ramp configuration there at 56, but I believe the end of May we should be in a much better configuration. So for those of you guys who are not familiar with CDOT, we have 5 regions, basically broken up into 4 quadrants, and the northeast quadrant, which is region 4, and then region 1, sort of you just kind of take it out of the heart of Denver there. So next slide. And just to put it in perspective, you know, how many lane miles does CDOT have to maintain and operate annually? About 23,000 lane miles is what we're in responsible charge of. Region 4 has about 6,300 of those miles. So we actually have the most lane miles of any other region. I always note that because I think we should get the most money than any other region, but that does not always fall that way. There are other factors that come into the finances, like population and VMTs. It's not just lane miles. Next slide. And just at high level, you know, there's about 500 employees at CDOT. Pretty much 2/3 of our makeup is maintenance. We do everything from, our big operations is snow plowing, keeping those highways open. But potholing, mowing, guardrail, right? We get guardrail hits all the time. We have to go out there and replace that guardrail. So surprisingly enough, not a lot of our maintenance dollars actually goes to preserving the longevity of our assets. That actually comes from our asset program, which I will hit on. Next slide. So just high level, these are a lot of charts to absorb, but I'm just going to use some round numbers. I did ask our budget office for what our budget looks like in this fiscal year coming up in FY22. About a $1.9 billion budget. Sounds like a lot of money. A lot of that is coming, it says cash funds, that is the Senate Bill 267 and 260. And then we get a lot of funds from the federal government, which is pretty much from our gas tax. Next slide. But as you take that nice big pie and you start breaking it up, where do all those dollars go? Well, Currently, about 50% of that budget is gonna go to capital construction. That is not typical for CDOT, but because of SB 267 and 260, and now IIJA, we are able to put a lot of dollars into our capital construction program. The other big pieces, two other big chunks of the pie that I wanna point out, one is the orange one, which is our maintenance and operations, about $350 million. These are statewide numbers, not the region numbers. These are statewide numbers. But about $350 million goes to maintenance operations. And then there's the green box, which is about $225 million, and that is all pass-through funding to local entities. So local agencies for federal projects. So could be the town of Mead, Larimer County, Boulder County, any of the communities, we do all pass-through work and oversee that through our local agency program. You can see there's a lot of other pieces of the pie, but I won't drill into those today. Next slide. So, just as a reminder where some of these funds are coming from, again, about 50% of the pot is coming from the federal programs. That is at 18.4 cents per gallon. For those of you guys who have followed transportation, it's one thing that I think we've all said for a long time. The gas tax hasn't been raised since 1993. A lot has changed since 1993. You know, even the price of gas, I think in 1993, the price of gas was about $1.10. Right now we're filling up at the pump for $4, but still only 42 cents is actually going to our roadways. As you can imagine, the buying power of our dollar, right? We all know what it costs to buy a house or groceries or a gallon of milk. 25 years ago looks a lot different, or 30 years ago. Looks a lot different today. So our dollars aren't going as far, which was why they really needed to, you know, was the impetus behind Senate Bill 260, which did bring in some new fees, but helping towards funding transportation. The other thing is, as you all know, we're moving towards, you know, there's a big push to electrify our fleet, which is great for the environment, but electric vehicles don't pay a gas tax, right? So we've got to figure out a way to counter that, because they're putting just as many e-sols, creating just as much congestion on our roadways as a gas-powered vehicle. And so 260 was able to secure a fee when you go to register your electric vehicle. You pay sort of an equivalent of a gas-powered vehicle. So then we have the Highway User Tax Fund. Again, that's from court fines, other vehicle fees, our FASTER, which is our safety program, as well as, you know, like I mentioned, there's 42 cents of gas tax. The state gets the other portion of that. So part of it goes to the federal, part of it stays with the state. The other big funding pot that we have is Bridge Enterprise. I don't remember how long ago it was, but Bridge Enterprise has been around at least a decade. And that is a fee you pay when you register your vehicles. And that was really to bring we were in a state of despair. Our bridges were starting to get into a very poor condition. And so we've specifically targeted bridges. Senate Bill 260 added tunnels to that because there's desperate need of repairs on the Eisenhower Tunnel. That's really our major and oldest tunnel, at least, you know, other than the Little Rock tunnels, but that's one of our oldest tunnels in Colorado, and it's in need of about $150 million of essential repairs just to keep the lights on, so to speak. So that is one of the big things that's coming out of 260 is to help fund that bridge and tunnel enterprise. Next slide. Just want to talk about the kind of work that, you know, how much we've been actually doing with all this money, the Senate Bill 267, and now 260. You know, our program and what we used to spend historically out in capital construction, and this is just capital construction, we were around $500 million. Since 2016, we've been sort of increasing those are contractor expenditures out on the roadway, and as you can see, 2022 is gearing up to be probably the largest year of construction expenditures across the state. Next slide. So changing gears really quick, so how do we select the projects? How do we select the projects that go on this, on that capital the capital project list. Well, I can say there's a number of ways we've done it, but our current administration came in to office about 3 years ago and said, I want a 10-year plan, a 10-year list of projects that has fiscal constraint so we can work towards something. We used to have these long lists of all these needs, and they were unconstrained. The $12 billion list, and it's like, well, where do you start on that? And she really wanted to put framework around it, and we had funding for the first 4 years of that 10-year plan. We had $500 million per year, and we said, all right, if we were to build a similar list for the next 6 years at $500 million, what would we get accomplished? So we could make a point to legislation, hey, if you fund us through the general fund or a Senate bill, this is what we can get accomplished. And it was successful. Senate Bill 267 did pass, IIJA, the infusion of new infrastructure dollars. And so instead of just delivering on the first 4 years, we are now, basically those projects are fully funded and they're well underway. We are in a process right now where we are looking at what does the next 4 years look like and how do we select those projects to pull forward. Like I had mentioned before, big pots of money get cut up, and right now it gets cut up in 5 ways. Region 4 sees about 24% of that pot of the money, and that's around $321 million. And then I have 4 MPOs and TPRs, which are planning organizations or planning regions. And then I split the money in 4 ways. So town of Mead is in the upper front range. No, you're not. You're in Dr. Cog. And so, 71 million is going to the Dr. Cog area over the next 4 years. What does that mean to you all specifically? The big project is I-25. And out of that 321 million, 95 million is going to be pushed towards the Segment 5 corridor, which is really impressive. It shows the priority and the need. I would say Region 4 probably has some of the most consensus around with 4 TPRs and everyone agreeing that that's the #1 priority. It's been very consistent. We've had a very consistent message, and to Helen's point on how can you continue to support us, doing what you're already doing, but participating in coalitions, in public comment. Kathleen does a really good job of advocating for funding for I-25, and I can say Segment 5 is not a $95 million project. It's about a $350 million project, so we are short, but the intent is to leverage those funds for future grants or a financing through our High Performance Transportation Enterprise, which actually changed their name to CTIO, which is the Colorado Transportation Investment Office, because that's really what they do. They make investments, they leverage toll revenues, and we can basically borrow against that. So the next slide. I think Abra has hit on a lot of this, but I mean, if you have moved north at all from Mead and traveled north, you can see the amount of work that's being done on I-25. Last year alone, the project team spent $200 million, and we're looking to see this next year to be about that same amount of expenditures on the I-25 corridor. But a lot of work is being done. The project teams do a fantastic job. A lot of outreach. We know it's a lot of impacts to communities. But I ask that you guys continue, if there are current concerns or comments, continue to reach out to us. We're really here to help. It is for the greater good of the communities. We know, but we do recognize the impacts of construction. I think I have one more slide, and really this slide is just this just shows the progress of all the work that got completed. Everything in yellow on the top was not completed. Everything kind of as they turned green, those are the bridges that got done. It is Work Zone Safety Awareness Week, and I my public service announcement to remind everybody to really slow down for the cones. We had our remembrance event today, and CDOT's lost 62 people in the line of duty, in construction or maintenance out on the roadways, and so, that'll just be my comment for the people here in the room and on the phone, is to just put your cell phone down when driving and really pay attention to those posted speeds. The men and women that work for me, they put their lives at risk every single day. And many times they're not behind a concrete barrier, and even behind a concrete barrier, they're still not safe. Especially with the way people drive these days, so. And the last slide I have is just, I think there's one more. This is something I'm just starting to audience, but I'm really trying to tell the story about I-25. And that although it's a north-south corridor, it really does so much more than just north-south movement. It really ties northern Colorado together. I'm really trying to tell the east-west story and the connectivity that this project is bringing. It's bringing a lot of different modes. That's one of the things that the EIS identified. You know, express service, as you all know, Mustang's up and down the I-25 corridor. We're building the first 3 mobility hubs in Colorado. You know, one at Centera, one at 56, and soon to be one at 118 in Firestone. So that's really all I have. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Kathleen. And I'll sit around. I'll wait till Kathleen's done, unless you have specific questions for me now.
Can I just say thank you very much, and we've been on the road here together for many years, and of course I'm gonna ask you about segment 5.
Yeah.
And what can we do, just back of your minds, what can we do as a board in our community help you succeed in getting segment 5 finished? So I think maybe that's a, you know, is it a campaign of some sort, or?
So where we're at right now with segment 5 is we have a triple P proposal, which is a public-private partnership. So we have an outside developer, basically a concessionaire, that's come in and said, hey, we want to build this express lane for you. And we think we can do it. And what they do is they will build it, take over the operations and maintenance, very similar to US 36. And CDOT has to determine, is it a viable solution? So what we are is in phase 2 of that proposal. Their proposal is due in the middle of May, and then we need a couple months to review it. What I would say, so if they come in, and if it's viable, then we've got a green light, and we're moving forward with building out segment 5. And not only would it be segment 5, but it would be segment 4, which is the concrete section, adding an express lane, and it would be continuous all the way down to Union Station. There's a missing gap around State Highway 7 as well that needs express lane. And then it would be safety improvements in what we refer to as segment 2, which is that very congested portion between Thornton and 36. If the triple P is not successful, and what I can say is Shoshana is very aware that segment 5 is the highest priority for northern Colorado. That said, you know, if the triple P is not a viable solution, my next strategy is going to be looking for potential grants to chase. We're not going to chase grants this year because one other thing I can say is when we look at grants, we have to look at it through a statewide lens. You know, although that's my #1 priority project in Region 4, it is not the state's priority project. Right now, Floyd Hill is the state's priority, as well as 270. But next year, potentially, this segment 5 will compete well. But what we need to do is put together a good financial package. So in the back, you know, in the office right now, what we're also doing simultaneously while the triple P is going on, we're running the numbers to say, what can CDOT do to finance this delta? Because we know we have 95 million, we need 350. So how do we close that gap? And we've got to get creative. So for the time being, I would say continue to do what you're doing, but when the time comes, letters of support, communication to our Transportation Commission. Again, Commissioner Brackey, she carries a loud voice for Northern Colorado, but that it doesn't hurt to have others echo what she's saying.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Heather.
Yeah.
I had a quick question for you, since you just brought it up. When you're saying they were talking about the triple P adding a lane, express toll, would that take it from 3 lanes then to 4 lanes, or would it be, okay, so?
So in segment 4, which is the concrete section, State Highway 66 to State Highway 7, about 12 miles, yes, it would add a express lane, a 4th lane down the middle.
Thanks.
I have a question, and I don't know which of you two young
We can
ladies
answer
are
it.
You guys can do it together. Some of the comments that I hear a lot is about the selection process. The obvious question is, why from exit 245 to exit 50 didn't that get put into the original package? That seems to have created a bottleneck on both sides. And I can attest that at least once a week there's some accident that happens at that bottleneck. There's always accidents going on at the Mead exit. We're getting to be known as that, the accident at Mead exit. So I'm not sure I understand the selection process, and I don't know how to talk to it.
When you're referring to selection process as far as which segment of road should we
Yeah,
fund?
why did we start way up in Fort Collins?
So there were a
not
couple
way down?
reasons for that. So not in any order of priority, but the couple of reasons were the volumes are higher in northern Colorado, or in, you know, what we call 7 and 8, which is the Loveland, Fort Collins area. So volumes were higher safety issue. We also, Larimer County passed a mill levy, $10 million to help sort of seed the funding. When it was all said and done, we had, you just rattle these numbers off all the time, $62 million come to the table by locals in that area. There's a lot more locals that can actually come to the table with money in that reach than could, say, in Mead, right?
Okay.
Those are a lot of funds. I will also say the gap was strategic. I'll say that I think it was with some purpose, that yes, careful how I say that, but, you know, there is a gap and there is a need, and as we continue to complete these projects up north, we have to get segment 5 done. I don't think there's a choice for CDOT to not get it done. So, I think it applies the appropriate amount of pressure. Again, the number one impetus and reason why those got done first is we had more money to leverage, and we had higher volumes.
Thank you.
I had one interesting thing. Sand. Sand is the second most exploited resource on Earth, and we're running out of it. And what is the main ingredient in concrete? Sand. Is that something that is being talked about at all as far as how that will impact transportation in the long term when we run out of sand? I know it seems kind of, it's one of those things that most people probably have no idea. But there are actual like sand cartels in other countries because it is such an exploited and valuable resource. And we are running out of it. And that's gonna affect transportation at some point in time. It's gonna affect a lot of things at some point in time. Is that even remotely on the radar?
I personally have not been in those conversations, but I do know that there's a lot of discussion around the makeup of our materials and how to be more sustainable and more green in the use of our resources. Specifically as it relates to sand, I don't know. Do you have?
No, I haven't heard sand in particular, but you're right, we look at all of the whole supply chain, right, that goes into all of the materials for the roadway system and all of the different parts of transportation. So it is an interesting one to think about. I mean, it's like water, right? We're all talking about water now, right?
Yeah.
We have
Well, it has to be a
resources.
particular type of sand. It can't be desert sand, I guess. Desert sand is too rounded and it doesn't stick together. It has to be from seabeds or the shores or from other places. And so eventually we're gonna exploit the crap out of it and we're not gonna have enough sand. So I don't know, I just thought it was really interesting, and there are so many impacts that will have when we start legitimately running out of sand to make all the things that we're used to making without even having to think about it. And I'm hoping that people start at higher levels, like you guys, start to think about, okay, what's gonna happen when we can't get this, or the price of it goes so high that it's unaffordable anymore and what have you. So I hope you guys are looking at alternatives. That's good to hear that it is something you're thinking about, but.
And I think it goes to the point though too, that we can't just be about more and more and more and more, right? We
Mhm.
can't just keep making the system bigger and bigger and bigger and expecting that to work. I mean, there's cities all over the country, all over the world that have demonstrated no one can afford that, right?
Mhm.
We can't afford it financially, socially, environmentally. And so how do we maximize the use of the resources, the raw materials and all of it, to get as much out of the system as we can? Because it is not infinite resources anywhere. And so that's a really important point, that we need to be using everything we have, our money, our resources, our natural resources, the most efficient and effective way possible, and optimize it. And it's just not an ever flowing basket of more and more and more.
Right.
And so I think that's a really good reminder for us.
I think so.
All right, we'll just switch over, but again, I just wanna say thank you again to Mayor Whitlow and to Helen and for Heather for the opportunity to be here tonight with all of you and all the work that's gone on for so many years. I mean, transportation is a long haul. These projects are big, they're expensive, they're important, and they take a long time. So Helen mentioned the North I-25 environmental impact statement. I was like, oh my goodness, yes. Worked on that years and years ago. But that's how long it takes, right, to put a plan in place to figure out what is the need for North I-25 and how to connect from, all the way from Wyoming to Denver, and what does that need to look like, and how do we go about making it come to life. So I have a small role in the whole part of the play, I suppose, but I really enjoy my work on the Transportation Commission. I've been in the transportation arena and work for over 30 years, but this has been an opportunity to participate on the CDOT Transportation Commission as an appointee. I'm one of 11, and again, I represent Larimer, Weld, and Morgan counties, but there's 10 counterparts from across the state. So Heather showed the map of all the regions. There's a variety of commissioners that represent those regions. And so we come together and we raise these issues like North I-25, and how are we going to deliver on the plans that have been created by all the communities, and how are we going to find those resources, and how do we align the policies of the state at the transportation level with our investment choices. And so that's a lot of these conversations we have around how do we distribute the resources. While there's more money now in transportation, and I want to emphasize that after working in this area for so many years, and I know many in this room as well, we've spent decades talking about what we can't do with the money we don't have. That has been the long-standing conversation about transportation. Finally, with Senate Bill 267, Senate Bill 260 at the state level, there's more state money available, not enough, but more. And then certainly the federal infrastructure bill that Heather mentioned, the IIJA, there's all kinds of acronyms for it, but I just call it the federal infrastructure bill. But we finally now have new resources that we haven't had before. So how do we get those infused in these projects? And you saw on the charts more and more opportunity to build out these long-standing plans, because we know the improvements that are needed on North I-25, and they're critical. And they're critical for safety, they're critical for our economy, moving goods and services, and moving people. And one of the reasons I'm such an advocate for North I-25 is that it's certainly the lifeblood of Colorado, but when you think about Colorado's role in the Rocky Mountain West, I-25 is what connects us to the states beyond. And so we're part of that larger economic ecosystem, and I-25 is such a critical link in that. So we need to find all the resources we can to get it done and to fill in the gaps. Certainly segment 5 is a very critical piece. But I also think it's phenomenal the work that Heather and her team are doing to deliver I-25 from the standpoint that it is truly a role model for transportation. It is where we're building, yes, it's an interstate and there's more lanes being added, but there's Mustang, there's the managed express lanes, there's the mobility hubs. It's creating more of a sustainable transportation solution for northern Colorado, and again for the larger area, that is more sustainable over time. We're going to be able to move more people and more goods and services through North I-25 because of the improvements that are being made. So to me, it's I won't say an easy one to get behind. It's not an easy one to deliver. The price tag is huge, but the reasons why it's so important are critical. And so the letters that I know you all have written, the I-25 Coalition, constantly beating the drum about the importance of I-25 and why it's so important in terms of connecting communities, connecting people to jobs. You know, I live in Fort Collins, I work in Boulder County. I use I-25 every day. I say I'm one of those people. I'm out there every day, I see it, I feel it, I understand it, and that's where I can afford to live, and I have to work where I work so I can afford to live where I live, and that's our normal life in northern Colorado, right? And so how do we help convey that story about why this project is so important and the difference that's going to make? And I love this slide that Heather's created that shows the context of I-25, not just in its role moving north and south, but how it connects communities east and west. Because again, we're connecting people to each other, people to jobs, our economy together. And we start to look at how's it connecting Mead, how's it connecting Berthoud and Loveland and Fort Collins and this broader area, again, it helps make the case for why this is so important. So my work on the commission is really focused at that policy level, making sure that as plans are being developed, that the voices from northern Colorado are connected to those conversations and those decisions that are made. So I really appreciate when people write letters and then it's not just me and my voice alone in the commission. Because again, there's 10 other colleagues that I have on the commission and they're all advocating for their part of the state. And I can say, well, this is why this is so important and this is why it has a statewide benefit. So keep up the good work that you all have been doing. I think it's helpful. I know Heather's done the tours of North I-25 and the construction. If you're interested to go out and see it, the work is phenomenal and under really, really hard conditions. I mean, to build this while there's so much mobility happening at the same time is phenomenal. So I would just say, you know, please keep the cards and letters coming, keep that voice out there and active, and know that I'm here and I'm willing to meet with you like this in small groups. If there's projects in your community that are, you know, on the state highway system and you want to go look at them, you know, Heather and others are more than glad to do that. We've gone to Wellington and look at some of their projects. I'm glad to do that as well because the more familiar I am with what the issues are and the needs are, and again, the why behind the project, the better job I can do to be an advocate for that at the state level. And I can be a conduit for information. I mean, CDOT can't do everything everywhere, and so sometimes I bring ideas forward to the commission and they're like, nice idea, but we can't do that. And that's okay, but I figure, you know, you have to ask, right? Sometimes you have to ask more than once. But this connection and the relationship with all of you is helpful because then I can help be that voice and then I can help bring the conversation back and say, well, this is what's working, or maybe we need to find a compromise somewhere, and how do we knit those pieces together. And so the information and the work you all are doing, I'm amazed at all the things happening in Mead. Like I said, I go by here all the time. I'm like, wow, there's some really cool stuff that's happening. So the more I'm aware, the more I can help, the more I can be a conduit of information and a liaison. I'm glad to do it. And then again, as we're looking at these resources, how do we leverage the money we have? We have $95 million, we need to turn it into $300. Well, that's what we do. We figure out how to go after grants, how to leverage it. I am very intrigued by the public-private partnership proposal for North I-25. In my work life, I was involved with US 36. I saw that come forward as a very successful public-private partnership. So it is possible, but the numbers matter and the money matters. And it can't just be a sales pitch. The numbers have to work out because, again, at the end of the day, who gets left with the bill if it doesn't is the taxpayer. And that's part of my job, is to make sure that we are not putting an undue burden on the public. And so it's that responsibility of trying to figure out, yes, we need the money, but we want to get the money in a way that's going to leverage it for more and manage the risk. So there's a lot in that. I'm excited to see how it plays out. It'll be interesting to see, and it could bring a whole other dimension to move forward on I-25. But as Heather said, if it doesn't work, we'll find another way. We've got to get it done. Not going to leave a hole in the middle. We're just going to keep at it until we figure it out, and it's a long game. But you guys are doing a great job, and I think the more that can happen in that same vein, the better. But if you have other projects, I know we talk a lot about I-25, but CDOT has revitalizing main streets for smaller scale roadways, safe routes to school projects. And so there's a whole variety of opportunities through CDOT. It's not just all about I-25. So I would encourage you to work on that. And then as Heather said, we're working on updating the 10-year plan and the 10-year pipeline of projects. So my philosophy on why it's a pipeline is money's the water that makes the pipe flow. So we need to be getting the money and getting it through the pipe to get the projects done. And then that creates more room to bring in more projects and move those to the pipe. So we do a lot of work around the financing side of things and the resources, and by having that strong plan in place is critical. So I guess, and that's, I'll leave, kind of reiterating what Heather was saying, why I think North I-25 has been so successful is it has been that partnership. It's been locally funded, CDOT funded, grant funded. Everybody's been coming to the table with resources, so it helps again to make that case about why here versus why somewhere else. There's local dollars on the table, and then just being able to stay consistent in that message. And it's hard over time. I go to a lot of meetings and people are like, yeah, all I hear about is I-25, I want this project over here. It's like, yes, I get it, that makes sense. But we can't lose focus on I-25 and leave pieces undone either. So we need to finish what we've started, get it done, and stay focused on it, and then we can continue to bring more parts of the system. So I'm glad to answer any questions or both of you. So
Questions, comments?
please come to our meetings, or they're online,
Yeah.
they're easy.
And maybe we can get a link, Mary, to the meetings that Catherine goes to, the commission meetings. We could get a link somewhere in the minutes.
Yeah, I'd be glad to send it to you.
Yeah.
Because we meet once a month, and you can participate virtually, you don't have to go down to Denver, people can weigh in during public comment or letters or whatever is easiest to do. So, yeah, it's great to have public dialogue and public involvement in the meetings.
Yeah, thank you, Kathleen.
Yeah, thanks.
Heather, could we get a copy of your?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do.
Okay, we have that. Thank you. It's always intriguing every month when we get updates from the chamber on the team, of what's going on. And, I'm not the professional like these two over here, but I mean, I still follow along and advocate. And it's been a long time, and my job has been to advocate for 7 or 8, 7, and 6. And now, hopefully, and I've always brought this to the table when we go to the coalitions, I hope that everybody works together, and we have been for many years. It's just that avocation of, 1 through 10 or 1 through 8, or someday we'll have 10, I'm sure, but whatever. But thank you very much, and I just wanted to make sure that you were thanked, not only by myself, but the board. And Mary has some goodie bags for you to take home with you, to remind yourself that we are the best. We are the best.
We're trying to brag you. And I just wanna reiterate that the coalition's still live and they're kicking and they're not letting up. So Mead's not gonna get left behind. They have not stopped.
Yeah.
So they continue to have a very large presence and they're gonna continue to advocate for I-25 till it's done.
Yeah.
So thank you for the cheerleading you did on 6, 7, 8, but it is your time and it's time.
And I'll carry any golf bag if you want. I'm so impressed, with all the work that we've done, in the coalition, and thank you, Helen, for helping guide us through this. But it's been a pleasure because it's such an education for myself, and so thank you. Take these goodie bags and remind yourself that Mead is on the map. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank
so
you.
much.
All right. Welcome.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, drive carefully, okay?
Yep.
Home
Yep.
and
We're gonna take I-25.
I know, we're like.
No phones.
Not close tonight.
No, really. Thank you.
All right, thanks. All right, we'll move on to our proclamations for tonight. The first one is our Mead Arbor Day, which is this Friday, April 15th. And this will be introduced by our Public Information Officer, Lori Johnson. If you want to say a few words about what we're going to be doing on Friday.
I'd love to.
Thank you.
So this year is the 150th anniversary of Arbor Day and the 50th anniversary of the Arbor Day Foundation. Last year the town applied to become an official tree city. Our application was approved by our regional division and it now awaits final approval by the Arbor Day Foundation. We recognize the importance of preserving and maintaining our natural resources, and we are commemorating this special day on Friday at Town Park. Public Works will be planting 40 new trees across Mead, and 3 of those will be planted on Friday. We're also gonna have a group of daycare kiddos come out and they're gonna help plant. And Public Works and the Mountain View Fire Rescue will be there as well to provide resident information on tree care and fire mitigation. So, the entire community is invited and we hope to see some of you out there.
Thanks, Lorelei. I've asked Trustee Bradhead to please read the proclamation for Mead Arbor Day.
Mead Arbor Day, April 15th, 2022. Plant trees, celebrate Arbor Day. Whereas the holiday called Arbor Day was first observed in Nebraska with the planting of more than 1 million trees, and whereas 2022 is the 150th anniversary of Arbor Day, which is now observed throughout the nation and world, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, lower our heating and cooling costs, moderate temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife, and whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products, and whereas trees in our town increase property values, enhance economic vitality of business area, and beautify our community, and whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy, wonder, and renewal. Now, therefore, Colleen Whitlow, Mayor, do hereby proclaim April 15th, 2022 as Mead Arbor Day, given under her hand and seal of the town of Mead, Colorado, on this 11th day of April 2022.
Thank you, Deb, very much for reading that. Is there a motion to approve the signing of this proclamation?
I'll motion to approve the signing.
Second?
Okay, any discussion? Okay, roll call please, Mary. Trustee Strands.
Yes.
Trustee Bradhead.
Yes.
Trustee Harris.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Adams.
Yes.
Trustee Cartwright.
Yes.
Mayor Whitlow. Yes. Thank you, motion carried. We'll move on to our second proclamation for the evening. Mead Motorheads Day will be May 30th on Memorial Weekend. And again, it'll be introduced by our Public Information Officer, Lorelei Nelson. You speak a few words about this fabulous day?
Yes. So 2022 marks the 18th year that Mead Motorheads is hosting the Memorial Day Car Show at Town Park. We are excited to continue this partnership, and the Memorial Day Car Show is a much-loved event. They have over 100 collectible automobiles for public viewing. Festivities also include food trucks and live music. The car show will be held on May 30th, and the town will be assisting with various event needs and advertising.
All right, thank you very much. I've asked Trustee Trance to read the proclamation for Mead Motor Day, May 30th. Sir?
Oh, I'm so happy to do this, because I am a gearhead as well, so I've participated in some of those car shows myself, so it's kind of an honor. Whereas the Mead Motorheads is a group of volunteers that has been hosting the Memorial Day Car Show in the town of Mead since 2004. And whereas the annual car show provides an opportunity for the town's residents and visitors to display their collectible automobiles and highlight the meticulous and careful attention to detail that is necessary to showcase such classic cars. And whereas the annual car show has broad appeal and embraces both automobile enthusiasts and the general public, and whereas the annual car show is a well-loved event free to the public, features a festive atmosphere with classic cars, music, vendors, and food. And whereas the Board of Trustees wishes to demonstrate their support and commitment to partnership with the Mead Motorheads. And whereas we recognize the enthusiasm and dedication of the event organizers, sponsors, and participants, and encourage the public's attendance by designating May 30th, 2022 as Mead Motorheads Day in the town of Mead. And Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Trustees that May 30th, 2022 is recognized as Mead Motorhead Day in Mead, Colorado, and given under the hand and seal of the town of Mead, Colorado on the 11th day of April, 2022.
Thank you very much for reading the proclamation. Is there a motion to approve the signing of the proclamation?
I'll move to approve the signing. Second.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call please, Mary. Trustee Cartwright?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Adams?
Yes.
Trustee Broadhead?
Yes.
Trustee Strands?
Yes.
Trustee Harris?
Yes.
Mayor Whitlow? Yes. Thank you, motion carries. We'll move on to our first public comment period of the evening. The board welcomes public comment for any item, whether it is on the agenda or not. The board will listen to your comments and take them into consideration. If you desire a conversation, please email the board or the town manager or attend the monthly coffee with the mayor. If you wish to comment on the public hearing tonight for the land code amendment, you will have an opportunity to address the board during that item. If you are with us virtually, please indicate by raising your hand to speak. When you are recognized, please state your name and address for the record. Again, if you wish to speak during this public comment period, please adhere to the town's general guidelines. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the Board of Trustees. If you're representing a group, you will have 5 minutes. Is there anyone here in the room that would like to speak during this public comment period? Seeing none, is there anybody with us virtually that would like to speak during this public comment period? We have one also in the later part of the meeting if you'd like to wait, or you could say to address the board at this time. Is there anybody with us virtually that would like to speak during the public comment? All right, thank you very much. I really appreciate everybody being with us virtually and in the room with us. We'll move on to our consent agenda of the evening. The consent agenda contains items which are considered routine and enacted in one motion and vote. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Okay, roll call please. Trustee Brownhead?
Yes.
Trustee Harris?
Yes.
Trustee Strands?
Yes.
Trustee Cartwright?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Adams?
Yes.
Mayor Whitlow? Yes. Thank you, motion carries. Next is our public hearing, municipal code amendment for table of land uses. This is a public hearing for the amendments to the land use code. First, we will hear from staff, then the public will be allowed to comment, then we will hear from the trustees. The time now is 6:58 and I will open the public hearing. This will be introduced by our Community Development Director, Jason Bradford. Sir, you have the podium and the microphone.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor, and the rest of the board. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you before you this evening to talk about a proposed code amendment that I'd like to present to you this evening, specifically to our principal uses allowed, or what I call our table of uses. And before I get started, I would like to thank Jennifer Vecchi, who is our planning consultant, who did a lot of work on this, and I worked closely with her, but she did by far the most difficult stuff. So thank you, Jennifer, for your help on that. All right, so for a quick overview and background, one of the things that is identified in our comprehensive plan is the town's vision that emphasizes maintaining a small town community character while also supporting a diverse economy within Mead. And the way we can accomplish those goals are by proactively capturing more retail potential and also by strengthening the employment base for light industrial and business park development. And the small town character is emphasized in a couple of different strategies from the comprehensive plan. Strategy 2A2 talks about regulating the type and design quality of developments near intersections, talking about the importance of doing that. And then the other strategy, 2A3, talks about working the town to work to ensure that development in gateway corridors such as I-25 or Highway 66 or County Road 7 and Welker Avenue, that they promote a positive first impression of the town. And then looking at the other goal of the town, the diverse economy, there are two different goals that are highlighted in the comprehensive plan. The first talks about evaluating and modifying existing commercial and industrial land use designations and zoning districts in order to welcome a more balanced mix of services and jobs for the residents in the town of Mead. So this is really important. The other goal is talking about pursuing and supporting diverse and appropriate industries that have a current stronghold in Mead. We've attached a few of these graphics that were included in the comprehensive plan to show sort of the character of, what we're striving for in a lot of our code regulations. And these collection of pictures here show some of the character that we are looking to try to establish in Mead's downtown area. And then these images talk about types of developments that we would like to pursue and see along some of our highway corridors. And then also from our comprehensive plan, these images show sort of the ideal of what we're striving for in some of our employment centers. These are some of the characteristics that we want to try to establish in those areas. So what is the purpose of the proposed amendment that I'm presenting to you tonight? The purpose is to further the goals of the comprehensive plan that I just highlighted by encouraging integration of mixed uses, enhancing the small town character, and also promoting the diverse economy. We're also evaluating the appropriateness of land uses within the commercial and industrial zone districts, and that's something that has to be looked at from time to time. Another reason that this proposal is being brought before you this evening is a request from various developers who have asked town staff for providing more flexibility of uses, specifically in our industrial zones, but also in other zone districts as well. So what is the strategy that we're using to try to establish some of these goals that were identified in the comprehensive plan? So the strategy before you this evening is staff is proposing to make a few changes to the table of uses, also known as principal uses allowed, section 16-3-40 of our land use code. And again, this is to provide that diversity of uses that we're hoping for in the industrial zones by allowing some supportive commercial uses within those industrial zones. The other thing that we looked at is looking to remove any uses that were potentially not compatible with the zone districts. From time to time, as a town develops, it's important to go and look at the uses that are allowed in the various zone districts and revisit whether those uses are still make a lot of sense. So, a couple examples of the proposed revisions that are before you in your packet. Just looking at this from a high level, one of the things that we're trying to accomplish is to provide compatible uses, compatible commercial uses in our industrial zone district. And we're looking at things like restaurants, limited retail uses, and things like that. Does that make sense to allow for those uses in our industrial zones? The other thing that was looked at is removing any uses that were no longer compatible in zone districts. I think probably the most important are some of the use categories such as warehouse and freight movement, those are pretty heavy industrial uses. And so the proposal before you, proposes to remove some of those uses from our general commercial zone district as, being incompatible with, what we're trying to accomplish in our commercial zone district. So what review criteria, should the Board of Trustees look at when evaluating proposed changes to the land use code? There are 4 that are highlighted in the table of use, in the land use code. And to save time, I'm gonna skip over those 4. It's written in your packets, and instead what I'll do is talk about the 2 criteria that staff felt were the proposed code amendments that are before you this evening. Staff believes that those changes comply with 2 of the criteria that are required. Only 1 criteria is required to be established, but staff feels that 2 were met. Specifically, to accommodate innovations in land use and development practices that were not contemplated at the adoption of the article. So some of the mixing of uses is a little bit more of a modern way of looking at tables of uses. And then the other criteria to further the implementation of the goals and objectives of the town's comprehensive plan, and I articulated a few of those earlier on in my presentation. So before you this evening, staff has a recommendation for you. Staff looked at the proposed code amendment and feels that the code amendment that's before you this evening does meet the criteria for approval as set forth in section 16-3-160 of the Land Use Development Code. The Planning Commission reviewed the proposed changes and made a recommendation to the Board of Trustees to approve the proposed changes, and that resolution was made at a public hearing that was held on March 16th. And so therefore, staff recommends that the Board of Trustees approve the draft ordinance and the amendments to the Municipal Code, Section 16, Article 3, which is zoning, Section 16-3-40, use regulations, and specifically Table 3.1, principal uses as allowed. So that is the end of my presentation, and I'd be very happy to answer any questions if you have any, or clarify anything that was in the staff report. Thank you.
First, we'll ask the members of the public if there's any public that would like to speak during this public hearing. Please raise your hand, and we will call on you to ask any questions or comment on the public hearing for the staff presentation. Excuse me. All right, thank you very much for being here. Thank you, Jennifer, for being here too. I appreciate your work on this. It's nice to move forward and reflect on what we've been and going forward. So, are there any questions from the trustees or comments to this agenda? Yeah, perfect.
Jason, just to help me, the net of everything that you said to me was that we're taking some of the rigidity out of the land use code and putting some more flexibility. Is that the net of it?
Yeah, I think that's a good summary. Specifically in the industrial zone district that we have, most of the uses that are currently allowed are strictly industrial.
Okay.
And so, at the request of a lot of developers, but also just in looking at the code from time to time, and looking at modern best practices for planning, staff felt that by providing a little bit more diversity, allowing for some mix of uses within the industrial zone would be a really good thing to pursue. And while looking at the industrial zone specifically, we also looked at the commercial zone districts to see if there were any changes that were necessary there. And there are quite a few of those changes that are highlighted in your report as well.
Okay, good, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Jason, I wanna commend you on the clicker, because it works tonight, just for you.
It's my magic touch, I guess.
So thank you very much for doing that. I wanted to ask you a question, since we do these updates on our comp plan, does this, would this constitute an amendment for our map?
No, so this, the proposal before you is just strictly looking at the table of uses in our land use code.
Okay.
But I hope to, and I'm talking with Jennifer and Colin and Helen about looking at a little bit of somewhat of a significant amendment to our comprehensive plan, and hopefully we'll be bringing something to you maybe next year.
Okay, I just wanted to know kind of like the timeline of these amendments that we've been, working on since 2018. That is it relevant to change things in our comp plan? Virtually, comp plan's like, so I was just wondering what the time frame would be to start working on the next plan.
Yeah, best practices generally in my experience are about every 5 years you want to revisit your comp plan. But in between those 5 years, you allow the comprehensive plan to identify those changes in the land use code, the regulations that we apply. Are those matching up and meeting the goals that we set in that you all set in the comprehensive plan? So that's what this proposal before you is to do, is to look at the table of uses and say, how can we make the table of uses match some of the goals and intent of the comprehensive plan?
Okay, well, thank you very much for
Thank you.
that. Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. We'll move on to ordinance number 995. Is there a motion regarding this ordinance?
I move to approve ordinance number 995, an ordinance to approve the self-initiated text amendments to section 16-3-40, table 3.1 of the Mead Municipal Code regarding permitted, allowed, and prohibited land uses as detailed in the agenda item summary report prepared for the April 11th, 2022 Board of Trustees meeting.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Thank you, Mayor, and I'd like to note for the record
that trustee Babcock arrived at approximately 7:08 p.m. So roll call, trustee Broadhead,
Yes.
trustee Harris,
Yes.
trustee Babcock,
Yes.
trustee Trans,
Yes.
trustee Cartwright,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Adams,
Yes.
Mayor Whitlow.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for all the work. Thank you, Jennifer, for participating once again in our moving forward in our town and on our comp plan. So thank you very much. Thank you, Jason, too. The time now is 7:13. I'm going to close this public hearing. I should do that every time. Doesn't work on my phone. Sorry. For all that, I tried to use the gavel and it didn't chime very much. Anyway, we'll move on to our agenda item number 11. This will be our second public comment of the evening. We have a 3-minute time limit. Comment is for any item, whether it's on the agenda or not. I'll open up this public period following the same guidelines as before as the first public comment period. And I will ask anybody in the room for any comment, and I see there are no citizens in the room. I will invite anybody with us virtually to speak to the Board of Trustees. Please raise your hand, and you will have the floor for 3 minutes. All right, thank you very much. We'll move on to our elected official reports, and I will ask the town trustees if they would like to mention anything. Yes, Trish.
So, you all are well aware of our last vote on the bean plan. I would like to make a request that I hope you guys are not opposed to. I would like to see if staff could check with some of our larger developers that are coming in, Home Depot, FedEx, Quick Trip, if they would be at all interested in sponsoring saving the grain elevator. And in exchange for that, getting a plaque or a sign or a something at the future rec center once it is completed. Companies of this size do that kind of thing all the time. I mean, you look at the big stadiums down there, and it's Ball Arena, Pepsi Center, Mile High this and Mile High that. It's always changing. Companies use money for things like this all the time so that they can put their name in public places to have it out there for people to see. And I would simply like to see if they would be at all interested in helping us save the old with the help of the new. And if they are amenable to it, great, that gives us a funding source that may be able to help us. And if they completely just say, forget it, then what have we lost? And at least asking.
I'm not sure I understand what funding you're looking for.
Sponsors.
To do what?
To put money towards our project.
And what do we get for that?
What did they get for that? They would get a plaque or a sign in our rec center.
What do we get for? What does the town get for?
We could save the grain elevator. I mean, I guess if you all aren't all remotely interested in even trying to save it, even if we get sponsors for it, then I guess that's a, and I can't do anything else, but.
I guess I'm not seeing how that works. Part of the problem is that the physical building is still in the way. It's still there.
Well, I guess in the way is a relative term. I don't think it's in the way.
It is the term.
So, well.
Can I say something real quick? So I have thought a lot about this, and tried to ask around and see what was on social media and try to get that gauge that I think, 2 weeks ago at our last meeting when we were talking about everything, I did vote no and to move forward with the complete demo and, to start with a new building. But I honestly walked away questioning it because I thought I had a lot of questions that I was told, no, we don't have that, or no, we can't get that. And I wasn't sure why we were, rushed might not be the right word, but it felt rushed. Like, why can't we find out, not maybe do a full survey or, you know, whatever, but could we find out what it would cost to just reuse the building and not save the grain elevator, since that just got piled into one, so there was save the grain elevator and that old building, or the new building, and that was the only option. And I asked if we could pull those out, and I was told no, and after I walked away, I thought, well, hold on, why? Why couldn't we get a little more information? And now, you know, we know Tricia doesn't feel comfortable with moving forward as a board, like we try to do. We try to say our piece, but then move forward with the board. What I wanna say is, I've thought a lot about it, and I still wanna say something. I've been contacted, I know a lot of us have, by, some groups that also wanted to save it. Nobody has come forward with money. I think Tricia has a really good idea, but it would only work if we can think about, could we keep the grain elevator, but scrap the rest and still build a new building? Is that even an option? Is that even something you guys are up for? Because if it's not something we're up for, then, I mean, me changing my vote would only make it 3, so we still don't have a majority. So I think what we really need to do, Tricia, is just say, if we revisit this, has anyone changed their mind or reconsidered or thought, could we just put the brakes on for a minute and get X, Y, or Z? Could we see if anybody's interested in helping us save it? Or, are the other board members completely like, no, we voted that we want to demo and move on. I think, at least personally, if that is the will of the board, then we will move forward. But I still would like to get a few of my answers questioned, and I didn't. I was a little, I guess I didn't have my head wrapped around everything at the last board meeting, and so at this point, I agree with Tricia that I would like to step back for just a minute. I'm not saying put the brakes on the project, I'm not saying give us all these other choices, but if anybody else is on the board who is willing to reconsider with a little more information about, could we look at the grain elevator, or maybe the grain elevator really isn't gonna work, but could we take that out of the equation and reuse, because every press release we put out there, and Tricia pointed this out, every press release said we were reusing that building. So are we really, and we're not, deconstructing it is amazing, and I'm super glad we're doing it, but that is not the same as reusing that building. So are we really just literally bulldozing, deconstructing, using all those materials and starting with a new building? If it's the will of the board, I'm on board, but I still wanna make sure that that's exactly what we're doing, and nobody wants to look at any of these other ideas to even gauge interest in getting corporate sponsors. And heck, when we go up there, maybe it's not, maybe it doesn't work for the grain elevator, but what if they would like to help sponsor our gem of a rec center downtown? Because they're new to town and they wanna build community rapport. So I guess my question would be, is anybody willing to relook at it? If not, then case closed and we'll move forward as board.
Go to Chris.
I did quite a bit of research on this, and the one thing I noticed is nationwide, a majority of historical societies are not supporting the saving necessarily of buildings, but they are supporting, with funding, the complete deconstruction of buildings and reuse of all the materials in the new buildings. My gut says there's enough wood there that we could build a really nice room in there that is the grain elevator. It's just not in the grain elevator form. And based just on everything that I've read, it's so expensive to guarantee 100% that it's gonna keep standing, even after, if we don't sink any contingency money into it, we still can't guarantee it's gonna still be there in 10 years. And I'm sorry, I just can't get behind, trying to save a 100-year-old building for the sake of having it standing there in the midst of our newly constructed community center, which is where I still kind of lean that way. But I'm 100% behind taking every piece of that wood and building it into that building somewhere, and making, even if it's a conference room with the wood that's been saved from that. That's history right there. We've used something that has been in our town for over 100 years as part of new construction, and it'll be there for another 100 years.
Yeah, and for myself, I'm not willing to go with option one because of the risk that it entails. The safety factor, the cost, the risk that it brings to us and our community, it just doesn't, we have to do so much to even just pump it up to put a foundation underneath it, and then the maintenance for after we're gone. So you have to really think about the whole overall picture of how much money today and how much money tomorrow is to save it. And my vote is still with option two.
Well, just like the rest of the board, I had a lot of thoughts, going through this last 2 weeks. A lot of emotion. I've talked to neighbors and friends and just kind of try to get some opinions and present the information that we were presented as a board. And the information, once presented, they're under the same mindset that I have been on, which, we're here to represent the town. I have absolutely no problem with saving a structure or doing anything if the town is behind it, and that's what they so choose to want to spend the money on. But when presented that just the cost just to get the structure back to square, nobody wants to spend that kind of money, and we can't even hardly, have the opportunity to get people to fund the roads, no less save that structure with that kind of money just to keep it afloat, with not really doing anything for a return for us, on that side. My biggest concern, Trish, was that we started these meetings back in July of last year. I went back and looked, July, August, and 2 in September. None of these options were talked about, nothing else was done. There was no passion behind anybody to try to come up with more ideas on saving the building. Maybe it was just like what you had said as to how people were thought or discussed about, maybe it was already thought about, well, it's already gonna be incorporated into the new design or something like that. I'm not exactly sure where some miscommunication might have gone down, but there are ways as a board we need to handle things, and my concern is under our rules of conduct. What you did to the rest of this board when you put out your announcement on social media is my main concern. I've got no problem supporting anybody here discussing, having passion. If everybody remembers, I was the one person who voted no for FedEx. Everybody else voted yes. I did not want FedEx to go where it was located. The board chose to have it as a yes vote. I stood behind it at that point. So I get your passion, and I support the passion, but there's a right way to do things and a wrong way. And under our code of conduct, the way you handled it was inappropriate. It made the rest of us look very bad, and I made my decision based on the evidence and facts that were presented to me. So that's where I have a disconnect. That's all I got.
Any words, Deb?
No, I'm still with Tricia on this one.
Okay.
Mayor?
Yes, I'm sorry. I see all the lights lit up, so. Sorry.
I'd like to make a statement to kind of go along with trustee Adams over there. I'm a newly appointed trustee of this board, but as a member of this board, I understand that the board works together as a cohesive unit that makes collective decisions for the betterment of the community. Their responsibilities are primarily fiduciary, as we are spending the public's money. And when appropriate, the board can and should consider other outside factors such as historical values and others in their decisions. The process used to make these decisions is a simple one, and it's used by many government entities. For any given issue or project, the process allows for extensive discussion, community outreach, debates, which at times can become somewhat heated. All this is acceptable. At the conclusion of these discussions and debates, though, the motion or consensus is usually proposed for a vote, and each board member has to vote their position, taking into account the best needs of the community. Their personal feelings should not weigh in on the vote. Once the vote is passed or rejected, then I expect all trustees to respect that vote. Getting angry and being unprofessional is unacceptable. So, at a recent board meeting of the 28th, Trish, the board agreed for an option regarding the next steps of the community center. However, trustee Harris decided on her own to challenge the board's consensus. This failed because she failed to convince the board that the cost to save the historical value of the dilapidated buildings was an acceptable expense. I do not appreciate trustee Harris using social media and other intimidations in an attempt to undermine the board. I find this behavior I can't say it, I can spell it, but I can't say it. Irreprehensible, intolerable, and unacceptable. No board should have to tolerate this type of behavior from any elected official, and I believe this type of action should bring some consequence. However, I do admire trustee Harris' passion, drive, and tenacity to preserve the town history. I've personally witnessed this passion in the past when trustee Harris was on the Open Space Committee and proposed with equal passion to purchase Highland Lake property to preserve the Mead House into the historical site. So I did have a chance to witness that passion in the past, and I'm glad to see that it's still there. But to that end, I might make a recommendation. recommendation might be that your talents and your passion and your skills might be better served on the Historical Society. I think it's a win-win for everybody. They will gain an individual who is passionate and driven to support Mead's history, and Trustee Harris will have an outlet for her passion and energy. Okay. So that's the conclusion of my statement.
Right. Thank you very much. Anybody else? Chris?
Well, sort of on the same subject, but not. I just want to ask, if we deconstruct the 3 steel buildings which are there, which I believe is in the plan, could they be sold? And what would their value be to somebody besides us?
Could they be sold? Yes, I don't know exactly, it seems more to go on the scrap market, because we would be doing it with an idea in mind of exactly how we would use, what pieces we would use. They're not like, Lego kits that you just take apart and put back together. I mean, the deconstructing of the site, doing the way the board has indicated, is going to be way more expensive than bringing a wrecker ball in and jackhammers to break up the concrete. So it will be done with care to take it out, but at an expense. The one thing I do wanna say, if the board does continue with the deconstructing of all of it, including the wooden structure, which I still don't know which is the grain elevator. When you say that, I'm not sure which is which, but everything wooden over there. I cannot guarantee you that you're gonna get all those boards down without splintering. I mean, if any of you have ever taken apart anything older, like even barnwood, we can try, but it may be that you're not gonna get a whole room full of wood that you can rebuild it with. I mean, that's just a fact of dealing with 100-year-old construction.
Maybe a wall?
Maybe, and it's often a goal with historic structures to use beams for things and use the planking. But just like the risk of trying to rebuild it, there's still risk in taking it down. It isn't always as clean as just, taking the back of a hammer and backing the nail out. I mean, just being realistic.
And I understand, I just wanted to see if there's any purpose that would bring financial money back in to help with this type of, the endeavor that we're going on with the steel buildings.
Yeah,
But
we
if
could
not,
ask George, and see if there's a market to just sell it outright and see what that value is.
I mean, maybe if we need 2 of them, we can keep the 2 good ones and sell the bad one. At least we might get $20,000 or $30,000 out of it if that's all it's worth. But it's something that would go towards.
Yeah, we'll find out.
You're talking about the steel? Yeah, the steel.
Excuse me, didn't I hear though at the conversation that we were going to try to save some of that steel and reuse it out?
Yeah, but I believe Trustee Cartwright's just positing, could another alternative be selling the steel rather than repurposing it?
Okay.
So we would find the value, and if there was a willing buyer, then that would be a decision.
But then at some point in the future, we'd have to buy steel to do something else.
Well, if we sell 1 building perhaps, and I don't know if we're ever gonna use 3 of those buildings at that size, but maybe sell 1 of them, and if it brings, I don't know, maybe it'll bring $100,000 back
I think it'd be much more valuable to us as to hang on to than it would be on the scrap market.
I agree.
Well, absolutely, yeah, I'm just saying, if somebody wants a building of that size, they may wanna just purchase the building. I mean, they may even be interested in taking it down.
They may not,
I don't know, I don't know.
That could be a problem, Carol.
Yeah, I'm just throwing out an idea.
Yeah, I don't mean to be dismissive, but
No, I
I'm just saying, using it and harvesting what we can, it's not like deconstructing a building that was built like a kit. I mean, we may also find we have issues with the beams when we take those out. Anytime you're gonna take something and reuse it, there is some degree of, of variability in the materials as they come down.
Sure, I understand.
Patricia and Herman.
So I do want to say I can respect your opinion and your opinion. I do respect that. And here was my big issue with that decision that was made. We have worked really hard over the last 3 years on transparency and community input on this board that people thought was severely lacking in this room. And as Brooke said, every single communication we did, every survey we did, every time we asked the public what they wanted to see, never once were they asked, and from what I could ever tell, not once were they asked, what's the historic value of this building worth to you? Do you want us to save this building? It was always just, here's some different designs of what we're going to do. What would you like to see in a rec center? We consistently put out there that we were going to salvage and we were going to reuse. And Lorelai's own words said, everybody's really concerned that we're going to come in and just scrap the whole site and build something brand new, and that's not what we're looking to do. We had put it out there multiple times that we were going to reuse this building, and I feel like our decision that we made, we had not asked the community what they wanted. We had not gotten their input. And with all the work that we have done on transparency and community input, I really feel like that completely just dropped the ball when it came to asking the people what they wanted. To just move forward with it. I know you say we've done surveys and stuff, but we never asked people that. We never asked them, what's that worth to you? And that is what bothered me the most about that decision, is that I did not feel like we really knew what the community wanted. You all are here to act, I get it, we're all here to act for the community. And we never ask. We're making a decision and we never even ask. And yes, it's our job to do what is fiduciarily most responsible thing, but there's a lot of history there, and there is value to that history, and we never ask. That was my biggest issue with what we did. And that is why I did what I did. Because, you know what, if nobody showed up here, which clearly nobody had a comment, nobody, I mean, yes, we got a letter from Polly, and I know some other people heard some things and what have you, but, you know, maybe you guys were right. I'm not saying you guys were wrong in your decision. Maybe you were right based on what we've seen here tonight, and that nobody has commented or had any, nobody showed up here to say. My biggest issue was that we hadn't asked. So, that's what I wanted to say. I think transparency, we've worked so freaking hard on that. And I felt like this was just, oh, we're just gonna make a decision without asking the damn person. It was just really a really poor way for us to go about doing that. So, thank you. David?
I was just gonna add, Trish, did you attend any of those meetings that were here for the purpose of the bean plan, repurposing it? Those 4 meetings, were you in attendance?
I came to one.
Okay, did you get any input, or how was the message conveyed?
Gosh, I don't remember.
Okay, I'm just trying to look, because I know we had these meetings, and I thought that was the purpose of those meetings, was to get the public input. And
But it was always, what do you want to see in a rec center? That is what we were asking people. What do you want to see in a rec center? And then there was this list of things that they could choose from. Oh, we'd love to see, of course, lots of people chose a pool, which is never gonna be an option, or at least not for a very long time for us. But then it was really just to gauge what did people want to see in a rec center? We never asked. It was always put out there as, we are going to reuse and salvage this building. What would you like to see in a rec center? That was my biggest problem with that decision.
But it doesn't sound like anybody in the public brought up the historical value either.
Yes, they have. Sorry, yes, they have. There's been a lot of people who have asked, and I mean, I feel like the town staff did go that extra mile and figure out, this is what it'll cost to even attempt to save the building, if we can save it once we get in there. But I agree with Tricia that everything we ever asked in all those meetings that literally 5 or 6 people attended. Now we deny that they were not well attended either. So, but everything we asked was, what amenities do you wanna see? Which of these plans do you like the best? It was never, does the grain elevator have historical significance to you and your family, or you as a person, as a citizen of Mead? And if it does, is it worth saving? Is it worth your tax dollars? Would you join a rec district for it? Like, not that we could go that deep, because we have to stay kind of up here with where we were going. And you can't give them 800 options, so a few great options were given, but I do agree, we never once said, this is a historic, this has a part, the bean plane is not historical. The grain elevator is historical, and even if it's not historical designation, it has significance to the town of Mead, to people who have been here a long time, and even I think to some people who haven't been here a long time. You drive by it and it's part of our skyline. So if we would have asked, if we could save this, is there something you think that the town, it would be okay for them to spend? Because we could get people who are emotionally involved and invested in it and going, yes, oh my gosh, I love the grain elevator, I have all these memories, da 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 da. Oh, you want me to pay taxes to say that? That's okay. I liked it, it was a great memory. Maybe it's something we commemorate in a plaque that we hang in there, some pictures, maybe, you know, hopefully the grain elevator, the history of it gets taken down by Polly and the Historical Society before it does get demolished, if that is what's gonna happen. But I don't think we really ever said, this really probably can't be saved, but if you want us to go save this, what are you willing, what are you okay with your town and your board spending?
That doesn't answer my question. My question was, did the public ever come forward and say that there's a historical value to it?
I've heard, yeah, I've
I
heard.
haven't heard it.
I've heard a lot of people
Absolutely.
who have, and I said, I don't know if these people are thinking there's emotional historical value, where it's, I see it, I wanna keep seeing it. If they realize, if we disseminated the information that this, literally, we could get into this, spend a lot of money trying to save it, and we still might not be able to save it. Some people, even if you just say, we'd like to save this, we think it's gonna be a minimum of, and I think they gave us some good range of, it's a minimum to even attempt to save this. Is it something you would like your board and the staff, town staff, to spend? We never asked anything like that, but yeah, I've had a lot of people say, oh my gosh, the grain elevator, like, you're just gonna tear it down? Have I told them, if we did, you know, I tried, with the information I was given, I said, okay, we aren't just gonna go tear it down. We all got this information and went, oh my gosh, there's so much risk and so much money that has to go into it. And we have been asked to, or we're given the responsibility to build this rec center. We bought it with rec funds, and we need to produce this community rec building. Can we really do that? But we haven't once asked if anybody's willing. Are you willing to get a tax increase? Are you willing to get a mill levy? Are you willing to go out and, you know, support, get donations?
For
I mean,
sponsors.
you never know. Some people literally would be like, yes, I know donors and we can get this saved. And if they come back and it's like, you know, well, we got $100,000, they'll be, well, thank you very much, but there's no way we can do that. But did we ask? That, I think, is where I kind of sat and went, you know what, we didn't. We only asked about amenities. We said, what do you want in a rec center? You want a splash pad? Great. Okay. Oh, a full-size court, but that can be used for X, Y, and Z. Oh, we need a community center. The seniors would like this. The parents of preschoolers would like this. The other people who came would like this. That's all we asked.
Well, I mean, even the title of our press releases were bean plant renovation.
Yeah.
Like, we never,
So yes, I have heard a bunch
constantly
of
and
people.
consistently put renovation, renovation, renovation.
I've seen a bunch of people say, oh my gosh, the bean plant, and how it's significant to them, it's significant to the history of Mead, but I don't know if anybody thinks it's significant enough to financially back it. So I just wanted to be able to ask that. question. Thank you. Chris?
I forgot what I was gonna say. I was waiting for so long, I've forgotten completely.
All right, well, thank you for the discussion, guys. I know you're very passionate about this whole thing, and I've been to every single meeting. And even during the coffee with the mayor, we brought this up, and no one has ever come to me to say, save it.
Except the letter we got saying, please save it, from the board of the historical society, so you can't say no.
That was after the fact.
That's after.
Well,
We
sometimes when
never
a
put
press
out there that
release
we were
goes
even
out.
thinking about demoing it. We had never put out there, hey, we're thinking about demoing this whole entire site. What do y'all think of that?
What do you expect is going to happen
I
if we do that?
don't know.
Do you think there's gonna be an army of people in here saying save the building? I don't think so.
I know.
Because people I have talked to, don't even understand why we bought the damn thing. So, it can go either way, I'm sure you have heard
I
people who
know.
are.
Oh, yeah, oh,
Yes.
I've heard people
I've
who are
heard
like,
people
This
want it
discussion-
demolished as well.
This discussion can go on for.
I know, so let's just, you know.
I just had one.
Okay, go ahead, Chris.
One very quick comment, I remember what it was, circumstances change. We bought it with the expectation we could renovate, we can't financially do that. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so I'm gonna, I have to circle back to the 4 remaining option 2 people. And once this is done, we need to make sure that we all stand behind the project that we've all come to love. Okay, so Herman, are you
I'm
still
with option two.
sticking? Okay,
I'm still with option 2.
Still with option 2.
and the same with me. So I appreciate the discussion. I appreciate the reach from Polly and the other letters that have come. I really do appreciate, us having this discussion and all the outreach that Lorelei has done with the community. I just wanted to say thank you very much, and there's not very many things where we have a really busy week coming up. We have Ziggy's open house, and we have a groundbreaking at Home Depot, and Arbor Day coming this week. So it is a very exciting week for the town of Mead. So I don't want this to hinder our, you know, I think we just need to move on and be positive, and let's make sure that we move as one voice going forward. So thank you, and is there anything else before we adjourn tonight?
I have one comment, or one question as to Lorelei. I just want to say in an email, the event on the 14th for which entrance? There's numerous ways to get back in there, and I know they've got security people all over that place.
I believe it's gonna be on the eastern side. I will give you directions.
Thank you. I don't want to get thrown up by security.
No, I don't wanna get lost either, so I'll get directions out and send
Thank
it to
you.
you.
All right. Again, thank you for your discussion, guys. I really appreciate the passion and the love for the community. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
And a second?
Okay, roll call, please, Mayor.
Trustee Babcock,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Adams,
Yes.
Trustee Broadhead,
Yes.
Trustee Cartwright,
Yes.
Trustee Schranz,
Yes.
Trustee Harris,
Yes.
Mayor Whitlow.
Yes. The April 11th, 2022 regular meeting for the Board of Trustees is now adjourned at 7:48. Thank you very much. Thank you for those who participated.